Hello YouTube, back for another video, this time another when you pull. Please remember to like and subscribe for future content and help the channel grow. And without any further ado, let's get into it. So this is when you pull. With FR and Shinryu, things work differently than they have in the past, so I want to give my thoughts and go over things you might want to know before making your choices on these banners, whether pulling or otherwise. This is not a should you pull or similar, because I don't believe that it's the best format for what I'm aiming for. My goal is to try and help people make more informed decisions for themselves, rather than simply parroting what they've read or seen online. Improving the discourse around fights and characters is always going to be good for the health of the game, and I often see folks say things like, well, I heard that X character is bad and falls off quickly, and you have to pull for Y because they're meta and you can't beat content without them, which has neither facts nor personal opinions behind it, and frankly, the game doesn't really function like that in Shinryu. I understand that not everyone wants to do a ton of research for fights and future viability of characters, but I am hoping to help people learn good habits when it comes to deciding whether or not to pull that are based more on fact than on hearsay. That being said, these are my thoughts, and as I want to encourage dialogue within the community, please leave a comment down below with what you think and with what your plans are. And as always, a like and a sub are hugely appreciated, as they help spread the content around and are easy, free ways to help support the channel and help it grow. Today I want to cover Shelke's Lost Chapter, where Shelke gets her C90 and Lulu gets her LD. To start with, Shelke gets a rework in this tuning pass. Her skill 1 becomes a double HP attack, I can speak, regardless of whether or not it's the plus version, which hits slightly harder than the normal one. The same is true for her skill 2, but the plus version gets a couple of extra brave hits, nothing spectacular. Her shield buff from skill 2 also gains Last Stand, which rounds out her sort of reset the game kit. Along with the usual speed up buffs, her C90 gives her a self HP damage up on her overhead, while the EX itself is transformed into a move with 6 HP attacks. She doesn't really get anything that makes her stand out a ton though, unfortunately. I mean, she's obviously perfectly fine, but she does have a glaring flaw in that, given the nature of the game, she's similar to Lightning. She takes a lot of turns because she does very little on each one. In Chaos and even in Lufenia, that's often just fine. There's ways to mitigate orbs, you don't have to worry about it too much. But in Shinryu, you've got to keep in mind that bosses are also charging their own force time as you act, and yours, once you do pop it, is limited to 10 turns. Shelke eats turns like candy, so it's entirely possible for you to burn through them with her, who Shelke is primarily a double dump character. Her skills both do just the 2, and then the thing to remember is that HP cap and the number of HP attacks you have per turn are the primary means of getting huge damage and force time, which means that while you can take Shelke in your party, you're probably going to have to manage her pretty carefully and possibly pair her with the right FR. The only ones that really come to mind are Titus and some of the generalist ones like Aroha. I think you could probably make her work as your primary DPS, but you'd probably want like Selfie's debuff up and like a mid-air cane during force time, and that could make things a little tricky, but it's probably doable. If you like her, more power to you. For what it's worth though, she'll be best with a melee FR or some kind of instant turn type thing. She does have an overhead, so she's able to trigger that one as well. So I guess examples would be like Machina, Titus, Renoa. That, like I said, that's outside of generalists, so there is more room to play around. As I mentioned, Roha and also Sabin come to mind. Lulu, as mentioned, gets her LD here, along with a rework. The simple version is that she gets more skill uses, and those skills do more damage, becoming triple HP attacks. Skill 1 is defense ignoring and imperils, while skill 2 grants a fire enchant buff to your party members. Her C65 is notable because it's got party-wide effects, So it does give brave damage and cap up to everyone. As for the EX, it doesn't gain any HP attacks, but that's probably fine since it already had 5. Instead, it gets more brave hits and hits harder, while the buff from it gains brave and HP damage up for Lulu, and then overflow for the rest of the party. As for her LD, it's a full AoE attack with 7 HP hits, which does hit pretty hard to be honest. It also does the Fire Imperil, but it does give a free skill on the next turn and then sets her Dollmaster stacks to max. The Dollmaster buff itself does gain party HP damage up as well as party fire enchant while boosting the power of fire attacks. So she does kind of double dip on her enchant because she also places an enchant buff on the party. So she does have 2 sources of that. Basically, your party is going to be hitting those brave caps with relative ease while she's there. Unfortunately, diminishing returns. Additionally, this fire enchant with her LD, the fire enchant from Dollmaster can stack with other elements, which no one else in the game can do. So if you're running someone with innately elemental skills, and I'm going to use Golbez as an example here, they'll hit for both elements. Golbez would do dark and fire damage. This can be useful later, but it is kind of a double-edged sword. You can use that with Mr. Braska, whose FR wants you to do fire damage while being at full HP. Unfortunately, though, Braska himself does not have party fire enchant, so this is a pretty clean workaround for that. That being said, Lulu still isn't the best. Her damage output isn't great. 3 HP attacks for her base skills is kind of lackluster for this point. Her EX and LD do hit pretty hard, but as we move forward, she's not really scaling too well. Her next tuning pass is a ways away, and it only gives her force levels. So this is where she's at for at least the next 7 months. And then on top of that, there comes a period where elemental units take a fat L in the form of lockouts, where the enemies don't outright resist or absorb, XYZ element, in this case fire. The hits just do 1 brave damage. Some units have ways around it, usually through brave gains, but others, like Lulu here, are going to get hit pretty hard. For most people, she's probably going to be a skip. Me, I kind of want to mess around with Braska, and I do like Lulu in Final Fantasy X, so I'll be pulling a bit. She does pop up again later with Reigns' BT on Pandemonium Spiritus in about 6 months' time, but again, no rework there. She will pair well, though, with magic-based FRs, along with those wanting, you to grant buffs or have a stacked buff. I'm thinking Lewd here? Lead? And then, as I mentioned before, there's Braska. She does also have Defense Ignore, Brave Regen, and free skill usage, though, so there might be room to mess around with, like, Vaughn or something? I don't know. There's things that you can do, but for most people, probably not. As for the fight, this is basically just a copy-paste of the original Shelke event, right down to the boss coming in and evading all of your attacks. So basically, just kill the ad, then focus the boss. I believe the boss is immune to debuffs that prevent it from acting or something like that. Or maybe it's just debuffs that... I seem to remember that you can't stop the boss from acting with, like, confusion, so you can't pour him your way through this. But if memory serves, if you get a good RNG roll on Wakka's LD, that will work, I think. Don't quote me on that. Anyways, the orb here is to do fire damage, which is +4 to the orb to a max of 15, and it ticks down -1 on your turns and -1 on the helicopter's turns. So just bring a good damage dealer and you're fine. It's whatever. I do know that it is possible to turn hog your way through this with characters Papa Limo comes to mind because he takes a ton of turns and can manage the orb pretty easily with his, fire-based kit. You could probably also do this with Vivi or obviously Lulu. Jack would probably be really good here. There's lots of options. You can also get around this with guaranteed hit units. There's not a ton of them. I think Saz and Irvine have guaranteed hit, and maybe Rosa. It's usually like characters with guns or bows and things like that. So just kind of play whatever you want. It doesn't matter. This fight is really easy. The boss has like 25 million HP, which is less than Sephiroth, less than Bahamut. I mean, just blow it up and you're done. It's that simple. I don't remember what I took for my original run on JP. I'm pretty sure I took Lulu and I don't know, somebody else. Who cares? This is a very, very easy fight. And that's it. Those are my thoughts on the upcoming units. Drop a comment and let me know what you think of the format and if you're pulling here. And if you're not too. Like and subscribe for more content, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.